Okay, ready to call to order the Board of Variance meeting for November 19th, 2020. Just to note, this meeting is being live streamed for audio and video. It's being recorded for the public. And in the City Hall in the room tonight, masks are mandatory. Moving on to any introductions of late items. No introductions of late items. Moving on to the agenda. So we have an agenda from 2 months ago, and if everyone has it, oh no, agenda for today, I'm sorry. Is there any additions or amendments to the current agenda? Can I get a motion to pass?
So,
In a second.
I'd be interested in talking about the agenda 2 months ago.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Mr. Chance.
We can talk about the minutes from 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
That's next. Minutes from 2 months ago have been circulated. If there's any changes or amendments, otherwise motion to move them as stated.
Quick question for Rainey, I guess. Under other business, we talked about building permit timelines, but there was no motion or no decision of any sort. I'm just curious to even see that there.
Yeah, it was just a conversation that we had while it was still recording, so we felt that it was important to put it on the minutes.
But that would have been no action required?
No action required, no,
Okay.
just a conversation that we had had.
Okay.
So does that conversation make its way back to others?
To the building department?
Yeah.
We can have a discussion about that after the meeting. Yeah, if that's okay?
Okay, so minutes from last month's meeting as is. Move to accept them? Sir?
Yep.
Great. So we can move on to the presentation for this evening. We have one application, Board Variance number VOB 742. The civic address is 420 Holly Ave. The applicant is requesting a front yard setback of 7.515 meters, a flanking yard setback of 3.5 meters, and a rear yard setback of 6.93 meters in order to permit a facade upgrade and legalize the siting of 2 existing non-conforming multi-family buildings. This represents setback variations of 1.35 meters, 0.5 meters, and 3.57 meters respectively. The zoning bylaw number 4500 requires a minimum front yard setback of 8.5 meters where a property abuts a major road, a minimum flanking side yard setback of 4 meters, and a minimum rear yard setback of 10.5 meters in the R8 zone. So those are the details of our application. Do we have anyone here who would like to speak to this application? Hello, sir. You're welcome to come to the podium and speak at the microphone. Is that sort of
I think that would be best.
It would probably be best. Please speak clearly and loudly so all members can hear. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming out tonight and having this meeting in person with the COVID protocol. My name is Gary Carniato. I'm a designer. I live in Camel River right now. The last time I was presenting in front of the Board of Variance was when Amish was giving a presentation of a building of his with a green wall. So, in a while. I was hired by the owner after a stop work order was put on this facade improvement and renovation project. And as it turns out, we have this raft of variances where the existing 1968 buildings don't conform to the new setbacks. The rear yard, for all intents and purposes, is a side yard in my opinion, and the front yard with the additional 2.5 meters is, again, something that the non-conforming just can't deal with the existing building being over the line there. On the exposed side yard setback, the building is askew, so if I can speak in Imperial, on the northwest corner, we're 6 inches over the setback line. On the southwest corner, we're about 5 inches beyond the setback line. And therein lies the issue for hardship on that setback is we have the overhangs. The roof overhang was all designed to cater to the existing portico overhangs that they had over the front doors. And then we compare the existing photograph to the under construction and the proposed facade drawings. That was the line that they went to thinking they were safe to do that, but they did not go through the process of getting a development permit, and that's when I came on board to do drawings for development permit, building permit, and this variance application.
Sorry, could you repeat that last part, Ross, that you said? About the development permit.
I was brought online to help them get the development permit, building permit drawings, and this variance application.
Okay.
So can I ask, has anybody been by to look at the site physically?
Yeah.
The owner's intent with the facade improvement was to try and improve the old building and make it look better. So I understand that they thought they were safe because they weren't doing anything. I pointed out that, well, actually, there's a few things structurally that they've done which have all been deemed fine by the engineer, so that's been checked. And at this point also, the lots were two separate lots in the beginning, and those have been filed with the land titles office with the surveyor and lawyer certificates to get it consolidated into one parcel.
Has that been completed yet? Has that been completed yet?
It is, all the paperwork is in, and it's in with the land titles office.
So it's not completed yet?
It's not completed. Laney, can you?
Sorry, the lot consolidation, it has been completed and
Oh, it has?
yeah, it's been registered with the land titles office. Just as of a few days ago.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Okay, I didn't know if it had been already registered, but that's good. If there's any questions?
Well, one question. Any plan in that back line, property lineup, or any plan to re-fencing or putting any plants in that type of property line, or no?
Well, as far as the property line that is bordering the railway,
Yes.
right-of-way, oh, definitely, the fence has actually fallen down in one location, and the owner wants to proceed as soon as possible with the second building and the development permit, which will include landscaping, fencing, and all the drawings required to.
How about the property line in the south?
The south property line,
Yeah, is there any plan to put the upgrade fence or any planting in there?
no, it is existing right now, but with the development permit, it could definitely be screened with fencing. There is room there it's an access lane right now, which can serve as a loading zone and vehicle access, firefighting, like a fire lane. So when I get to completing the drawings for the development permit, I'm sure there's the landscaping requirement. I'll put all that in there.
Thank you.
I have a question. Both buildings are oriented east-west, and the main one, or the initial one, fronts onto Holly Avenue, why then is the setback from town site considered as the front yard?
It's part of a definition where your shortest front lot line is deemed to be the front lot line. In some jurisdictions, they have started to change that where they treat both as front lot lines, but by definition, in the city of Nanaimo bylaws, the front lot line is deemed to be your shortest lot line fronting the street.
If I
I
may.
thought it was,
Then that would be Holly Avenue.
Yeah, I'll add some clarification to that. So the way that we determine lot lines is whatever makes the building the least non-conforming in siting, or if we have old building permits that specifically say what we determined the lot lines at that time, then that's what we'll go by. In this case, this was built a very long time ago, so we don't have that information. So the way that the city makes a determination is that whatever makes it the least non-conforming. So by calling town site the front, we have more room in the opposite lot line, which would then be the rear, to meet the rear lot line. And on Holly Avenue, it's considered a flanking side yard, which is a lesser requirement for a setback on that versus a front yard setback. So if we called Holly Avenue the front, it would be a lot more non-conforming because it's much closer to the street and it's way further into the setback. Does that make sense? And there's not enough space at the rear. If we then call the opposite lot line across from Holly the rear, there's less space in between that lot line and the side. So it's just the way that we determine the lot lines is purely based on how the building is sited on the site.
Yeah, I understand that. I find it a little curious. We're asking for variances anyway. So what it sounds like you're suggesting is that we're to consider the least amount of variance.
That's
Really is what's happening.
I made it a little bit logic here on what I have logical in my mind. You know, if they are separate property, obviously your back line is the one there in the east where the railway is, because you are entering from the Holly. But as soon as you are consolidating these ones, now you have a major road town side compared to Holly, so it's automatically that will be your front. Now that your back will be in the south. So I do. We can speak about the supporting.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
If our applicant is finished presenting, we're to discuss and ask him questions as required. So the floor, you got the floor.
Thank you. I am supporting the application because of the following reasons. First of all, is existing issue is non-conforming existed there, and they are not starting to build. Obviously, if they do, they have to meet all the bylaw. But this is existing, as they are showing, is all improvement in the buildings. Overall, it's going to be improved the looks of the area. The second reason is the idea of the backyard setback to being larger, because you do have a window to the backyard and you're looking at that for privacy reason. For other neighbors, we do want to have a larger setbacks, but these two buildings, they don't have a window to the backyard. They do, it's end of the building basically. They are all blocked, so it's also not create any privacy issue with the neighbors in future if they develop or not. Overall, I think they're doing improving the buildings. The end is blocked, and this is caused by the consolidating, and I'm surprised how they built in the two property from beginning with a long time ago, but it should be consolidated at that point. For this reason, I think I can support it.
I would just a few things. I'm just a little curious because the Board of Variance is supposed to act on hardship. And I'm trying to figure out what the actual hardship is. Most of the hardship appears to be stuff that was done without a permit, which created the hardship.
Most of the hardship is the existing building not conforming to the new setbacks. But the overhangs, the roof overhangs, are a self-inflicted hardship based on misinformation, thinking that the overhang on the existing building was allowed, and that's what they went to with the new overhangs.
But if they didn't do, if they had come, let's say if they started from scratch, if they had come and tried to get a permit or whatever before they started, am I wrong in that the building's not that far out?
It's not that far out, no.
Yeah, it wouldn't be much of a very small amount of variance if they hadn't created really increased the problem.
A 0.15 meter or 6-inch variance for the existing building. What has happened on that Holly frontage is they matched the roof overhang with the original canopy overhangs of the entrances, thinking that that was safe, and that put them a foot beyond the 1 meter setback requirement, and that is exacerbated by the 6 inches that the building is already over the property line.
So this has to go through, sorry, go ahead.
It's a self-inflicted hardship, but I was arguing on the point of aesthetic quality. I find that with a 2-foot overhang, the building still is the dominant, because 2 feet is such a common overhang. When you go to 3 or 4 feet, all of a sudden the building steps back and it becomes a primary feature. So they had the right intention, but they did not go through and determine that that was a setback issue, that particular overhang.
Yeah, which they would have had if they had actually come in and got a bit, or tried to get a building permit. They would have found all that out.
Yeah, and what would have been compromised is, because the existing building is 6 inches further out, they'd have to take 6 inches off of that end wing wall and take the whole roof overhang back to that line, which is approximately 18 inches, I'll say, which is why we're asking for a 0.5 meter variance, just so that the overhangs conform to projections into the setback.
I'm kind of curious about why they didn't go for a development, or we have to go through a development variance, is that right? A development permit?
They do not require a development permit
Oh,
because
okay.
the works are less than $150,000 over the last 5 years.
Okay, all right, so that's why they didn't go and get a variance on their development permit.
That's correct.
All right, okay.
Nelson?
Yeah, well, I won't pretend that I followed all of this, because one, I have a bit of a hearing deficit. However, you made some reference to 1958, and what is the context of that?
The buildings were built in 1968.
It was built in 1968?
1968, the original construction.
Okay. Now, when I went, I've seen these buildings for years. I think actually my daughter years ago actually rented one of those apartments when she was younger. In any case, when and you know, it was nice to see them going to be cleaned up and all the rest of it. But what I don't get, and maybe there's a simple answer, that is, there's all kinds of construction going on there on the front part of Holly Avenue, and I assume there must be permits involved and all the rest of it. So maybe this has been answered, but why, if the work is proceeding, are we now looking at a variance that should have maybe been covered earlier? Maybe you answered that and I missed it.
No, they hired me on to help them with this process when they got a stop work order. So basically what happened is the facade improvement got carried away when a bylaw officer, I guess, noticed that, hey, wait a second, guys, you haven't got a permit for this, and I don't know about those overhangs. I'm not sure what triggered the stop work order, but they didn't think that you needed to get permits for just a facade improvement.
So that's when you came in to sort it out.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it, thank you.
I do have a question regarding that. Where things are standing right now on the construction side, have you done any further construction, or that's where the owner got to before the stop work permit was?
No, it's sitting there, but still with the strapping and tar paper on it.
Okay.
Plywood exposed.
And I actually went by, but only on the Holly side, and I'm unclear on whether or not this variance applies to the entire property now that we've been amalgamated. Will there be a second application for a variance for the
There's no variances required for the back,
for the rear building, or the
For the
one
rear
behind the
building.
one Holly?
but I am starting building permit and development permit drawings for that.
Okay, so we won't see you again for when the second
No.
building is issued a permit?
No, this covers the whole,
Okay, great, thank you.
So that means that there's a current building permit now.
no, the building permit is dependent on this variance.
Okay, so they
Yeah.
started to modify the building without a permit.
Yes, it happens a lot.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, especially in the now.
If you don't do anything structural, usually it doesn't trigger a building permit. However, they got carried away and they did a few structural things with the overhangs. I believe even in a permit, the city allows you to cantilever 2 feet. An engineer will tell you, well, it's easy, you can cantilever 4 or 5 feet, and sure enough, they cantilevered 4 feet and it works just fine. The construction is good. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't screw up on any fire separations or anything. They just cleaned up the inside, and they were just improving the outside and just trying to make it look better.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Ken, any further questions for the applicant?
As a rookie actually in this meeting, I was struggling with that same question, why you're looking at that right now, because this project looks like under construction, but now I understand. They didn't need to get the building permit because it's just facade renovation. If they did go to the development permit, they should got the variance in that stage. They didn't need to come here because they could get the variance at development permit stage. And because for second building, they're gonna go for development permit, they will get the variance. Second building also require back setbacks, rear setback, because it's front and the rear is okay. It's just the rear will not be okay in the second building as well. But in development permit, they will address that, then they don't need to come back. Now they need to basically get variance for this building to continue on.
If you have any questions about process, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I just have one question. Can we recommend anything, and then that recommendation will go for next building when they go for development permit?
So they don't require development permits unless the works to the outside of the building are more than $150,000 over a 5-year period. At this point, we've determined, we don't have an exact number, but it's around $100,000 between this permit and a previous permit, a building permit that was applied for a few years ago because of a building fire. So they had to do some upgrades to the outside of the building. With the estimate cost of this building permit is around $100,000. So unless the next, when they come back and do the facade upgrades to the next building, it's over, let's say $50,000, then a development permit will not be required.
How about the recommendation at all for moving forward?
To have a development permit?
The variance for
A variance.
this variance, we can have some recommendation and approve or not, so we can have a recommendation.
Oh, for the second building, I see what you mean.
No, for overall person.
For the overall, okay, so you're saying you, in addition to what they're asking for today, you would then make another recommendation for another variance?
No, what I wanted to recommend is just improve overall landscape area and neighboring, property is okay, but since they are doing the job, they should, as site plan shows, they all asphalt is building and nothing up to the property line.
I don't think that's needed here. Our role is strictly
Yeah.
That's my
variance
question.
setbacks.
Yes,
Okay.
And
so,
because the lots have all been consolidated, then the variances will apply regardless of whether there's one or two or three or however many buildings.
that's right, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, variance, okay.
So,
Yeah, but what you're talking about, Dariush, is, yeah, that's very common for the design advisory panel. And if there was a development permit, we would look at their landscaping requirements as according to the zoning bylaw. But because this is an existing building and it's not triggering the requirements for landscaping, the board can't make a recommendation for that. You can make a comment to the applicant or the owners, I'm sure. Maybe they would take that into consideration, but we can't require them to, unless it's a requirement of the zoning bylaw.
Yeah, just my recommendation, suggestion is improve as much as we can in terms of the landscape and making, it looks like you're doing a good job in terms of the facade upgrade, so.
Yeah, thank you. I've done, a lot of my design work was in Pelican Beach, where they used to have a 25% landscaping that is hard and soft in the downtown core, so I'll get these guys on track with the fencing and landscaping.
Thank you.
A technical question, where's the wording sheet making the motion?
Oh, sorry, on my desk. I didn't bring it today.
Okay.
Ooh.
I think that you could
I
probably...
trust that you guys can,
No, we got in trouble before.
yeah.
When I had it the proper way,
Yeah.
and then the folks said, no, this is what you should say,
Yeah.
and so, anyways. You want a motion?
No, I just wanted to follow up about our goal here is to try and stay focused on the specifics of the variance, which is just the setback numbers. And ultimately, through our discussion and questions with the applicant, we decide if we would like to accept or reject the application. So if anyone has any further questions, please table them and we can continue the discussion. Otherwise, if someone would like to make a motion about the direction of this application. Nelson,
I
please.
would like to make a motion that we approve the variance subject to the language that we, so you have to fill that out if this.
Sure, so maybe if you could read,
I think it would be,
so underneath presentations, where it says the applicant is requesting a front yard setback variance, so you could say, I motion to approve the variance, the front yard setback variance of 7.15 meters, and you could just read that whole thing there.
Okay, I move under 5A, paragraph 2, the applicant is requesting setback variance of 6.93, 1.35, 0.5, and 3.57. I'm not going to read it all out because it's there.
Before we go further,
absolutely.
I think, I agree with you 100%, except what you said was a variance of when what is noted here is what would be left.
Okay, I guess maybe I should have read it out. So I move that the application be approved with a front yard setback of 7.15 meters, a flanking side yard setback of 3.5 meters, and a rear yard setback of 6.93 meters in order to permit a facade upgrade and legalize the siting of the two existing non-conforming multifamily buildings. This represents setback variances of 1.35 meters, 0.5 meters, and 3.57 meters respectively. Will that do it?
That's good.
Okay, if it's
Very clear.
as a motion, I'd like to be defeated or whatever.
Motion tabled. Anyone like,
I second it.
we have a second for that? All in favor? All opposed?
Okay, and you'd like to show that you were opposed in the minutes?
And who was the seconder? Okay. So,
Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much for your time, especially during COVID. And that'll be a big relief for my client. This has been eager to get going and getting this back on track.
It's nice to see.
yeah, it'd be nice to see that area cleaned up.
Yeah,
It's
It's a definite.
been an eyesore for years.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
have a good one.
Good night.
Thanks, Gary.
You know, technically, I agree with you.
Yeah, my question is basically if there is a hardship, they then refer to the Board of Variance, otherwise they, okay.
Then it goes to a development variance permit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it goes to
That's
council.
different. We're supposed to be doing hardship. I don't know if you still want this.
Do you mind sending out that explanation about how you determine the front yard?
Sure, yeah, it's a policy, it's not necessarily written in the zoning bylaw anywhere, but yeah, I'm happy to write down some wording, yeah, definitely.
Lainey, in this case, the civic address doesn't necessarily mean front yard.
That's right, the civic address does not dictate
Okay.
the setbacks.
And because this was previously two lots, as is often with corner lots, one lot will have one address and the second lot will have like the adjacent street address. Is that the case here, or are both these buildings?
Yeah, normally that will happen if there's a strata, but this is not a strata, it's all one property, so it's
Okay.
all one address.
Okay. I had thought no prior to it being amalgamated because there were two lots.
No, it's not strataed at all.
Okay.
Even prior to it being amalgamated.
Okay,
it was
so the civic
one
address is
property.
Holly Street for both buildings?
420 Holly, yeah.
Huh, okay.
But in this case, the building actually
It was 420 for both lots?
I know both lots,
Yeah.
but the front yard setback is town site. So it's a bit of a line with that.
Because they did the rental, that's why they didn't need to stratify or separate it. If it was condo, then they
Right.
have to strata, they have to consolidate it. But because of the rental, they didn't bother, maybe that those days
Yeah.
to do that.
So, are we still live streaming?
We are still live streaming, the meeting is still going. We still have
Yep, carrying on with the agenda for this evening, we have one more item to address, and that will be our other business. Number 6, our board discussion about a discussion to change the meeting time and the 2021 meeting schedule for the upcoming meetings in the new year. It was suggested that we change the meeting time from 5:30 on the third Thursday of each month. It's been confirmed that we have a new meeting date, and we are open to discussion about changing the time of the meeting as well. All yours.
Well, okay, I'm missing something. I have this here, but you said something was on the agenda.
It's on the very bottom of the front
6A?
page, yeah, 6A.
Okay. Okay, so this is sort of an open-ended discussion about whether we want to change times of the meeting?
That's correct. So it's been suggested, we all got a few emails about this conversation, added to the agenda, and because it's on the agenda, after discussion, if somebody wanted to make a motion, if it's clear that this should be a change that goes one way or another, we make a motion and we vote on it, and that will finalize the decision if we go that way.
That's as well as the date, is that right? This is not final, is that right? Is this finalized or?
The date has been finalized.
Yeah.
Council's voted, it's now, or approved our amendment,
Oh, okay.
just to align with council dates. So it is now the first Thursday. So that date is set, as Jessica had said. It's just the discussion, it had been brought up that maybe you guys were considering wanting to change the time. And then maybe I'll just also note as part of your discussion, the Board of Variance meeting on July 8th. So July 1st is the first Thursday in July, but of course that's a holiday. So that meeting we decided to push it to the next Thursday, but we have conflicting meetings. So we're just suggesting that maybe we move it to a Wednesday instead of having it on a Thursday, which the Board of Variance bylaw says that we can change the date if there's some discussion with the board. So we're proposing that we change it to either the Wednesday, June 30th or Wednesday, July 7th. So if you wouldn't mind discussing that as well.
Okay. So that will be noted in the minutes that we will also be discussing that one date change. Great.
So that would change the notification deadline and all that kind of stuff too, is that
No,
right?
we wouldn't change the notification. Oh, yes, sorry, it would change the notification deadline, but not the application deadline.
So on the right-hand column, starting January the 7th down to January the 6th, 2022, those are the recommended dates.
Those are confirmed dates other than July 8th.
Okay, July 8th might be something else.
Yes, either we're proposing June 30th or July 7th, so a Wednesday.
June 30th or July?
So if it was with June 30th, then that would change the application deadline, because right now the application deadline is, notification, June 11th. I'm sorry.
It does tighten it up quite a bit for that if you bring it up a whole week as opposed to one day.
Well, yeah, we would, no, it's supposed to be on July 1st. That would be the first Thursday, but because that's a holiday,
Yes, okay. All right,
We
we
tried
moved
for
anyway.
July 8th, but that falls on July 8th, so
yeah, we have another meeting on the same night in this boardroom, so we can't use it. So we said it would be easier to change it to a Wednesday, and we thought, well, then we might as well just change it to the day before what it was supposed to be, which is June 30th.
Doesn't matter to me, whatever. I might be on holidays anyways.
Yeah.
So the recommendation or suggestion should be a Wednesday in July and the date as well?
Wednesday, June 30th.
June 30th. Okay, and I guess for the next meeting, should I go and get my little things so I can
Yes,
prepare?
absolutely, especially if we're wearing masks. Yeah, I'll grab one for you next time.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to make a recommendation that we can vote on for when that meeting in July should happen? We should, because we have a confirmed schedule, we should just
Which works
solidify
better?
a date.
Which is the one that works better for you guys? Because that doesn't matter to me.
I think it would make sense to do the day before it's meant to be, so June 30th would be my recommend.
Okay, so you'd like to move
Yeah,
to change that
Change
meeting
it to June the 30th.
Why would July 7th not work for you?
Just it's a whole week after what it's meant to be, so it just changes the
July
date.
7th?
July 7th, it's meant to be July 1st, but that's a holiday. So instead of it being July 1st, we moved it to the first
Oh, okay,
Thursday. Yeah.
okay, rather than the 8th.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm struggling with the dates here, like, I don't really know what's going on. So June 30th, would somebody like to second that date as being the option? Great, thank you. All in motion of having that meeting rescheduled to June 30th? Unanimous. Great. So first order of business taken care of, we can get back to discussion about changing the time of the meetings. When I inquired about whether or not that was something that staff also would change based on the fact that they were in control of changing the date, they said, no, it's pretty much up to us. So that's why we need to have this as a discussion, and if we as a group decide to change the time, then that's what happens. And so if anyone wants to speak to why we should change the time and the rationale, we can talk about it and we can vote on it.
I'd like to talk about the fact that we should leave it at 5:30. Probably earlier isn't going to work. Later might work for some of us, but it also puts a demand on staff. So unless there's some real important reasons why I should change, which I haven't heard, why don't we just leave it alone?
Great, thank you. Nelson, Ken, please.
No, I'm okay. I think I was the one that agitated for a change in the time. And I'm in favor of starting earlier. I'm not sure why we have to wait till 5:30. The office closes down at 4. So in terms of, I don't know why it was set at 5:30, something about making sure that people could get here who had to work. Well, I don't see that 4 o'clock would make that any more or less onerous than 5:30. Especially in the wintertime, 5:30, things get dark at 4:30. And so the next couple of meetings, if we have them, will be coming and leaving in the dark, which isn't a huge issue, but I have to drive all the way up to the north end, so that causes me a little bit of concern. And it just sort of breaks up the day by waiting till 5:30. Whereas I thought if we start earlier, say about 4 o'clock, that brings it more in line with sort of the natural rhythm, if you will, of the day.
Sorry, Ken, if I may, sorry, the office, just for clarification, is open until 4:30.
Something that says 4 o'clock.
Oh, maybe that's COVID hours. Oh.
It's the new normal.
Sorry.
You've been working longer all this
Oh,
time.
boy. Okay, I'm gonna tell my boss. Okay, my apologies, I'll double check with
It's
that,
probably
but
the door's closed.
it used to be open until 4:30.
So the alternate suggestion rather than 5:30 would be
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. Is that a problem with the staff?
It's not a problem, again, it's up to you guys, but staff's recommendation would be to keep it later, or, well, not necessarily later, but in the evening to provide people, members of the public, to have time to get off of their job and get to the meeting. But at the end of the day, it's also, we want to respect the board and make sure that you guys are able to get here and whatever works for you, but we just want there to be consideration for the public and then having enough time to come to the meeting without, having to leave work early or whatever.
I know the RDN has theirs at 4 o'clock, and they've had that for years. And it works, as far as I know, it works for them. Never heard it didn't. So I prefer 4 o'clock myself. I think it keeps your day sort of, I don't know, 5:30 is kind of a weird time to me. So if you get ready for supper or whatever, I don't know. It's just, so for me, I would prefer 4 o'clock, and I know it. But you might want to check with the RDN just to see if they have issues with it. People get there. Usually if people have an issue like this on their variance or whatever, it's important enough they can come, take a half an hour.
I think it's plenty of advance notice.
Yeah, there's lots of notices, and I don't see a problem.
Yeah, so it's not like people find out noon of the day of the hearing. They're advised, the application is well in advance and the notice is well in advance. I agree with you. If it's important enough, if it's a significant enough issue, this last guy drove all the way from Campbell River, for goodness sake. So if it was important enough that he made it here. If we had met at 4 o'clock, he probably would have liked that better, because then he'd be home by now.
So if we did it at 4 o'clock for a while and we saw that there were problems, we could change it and modify it at that time?
Yeah, with a motion and a discussion and a motion.
Well, 4 o'clock, I'm fine with 4 o'clock.
Can I just ask, Lainey, for staff, for you guys, is there a more, between 4 and 5:30, does it matter? For staff, does it conflict with your end of day duties, or is there staffing conflict that could happen?
I don't think so. I think that, the general work day is from 8 to 4:30. Whether or not the counter closes at 4 or 4:30, I need to confirm that, but generally the staff schedule is 4 to 4:30. So I mean, we're here anyways, we just stay here and we prepare for the meeting, and, but if we know that it starts at 4 or 4:30 or 5:30, we can prepare accordingly.
So you accommodate?
Yeah, I think, I don't foresee there being a major issue.
I know that I work really long hours, a lot, and so, but I've noticed the rush hour in Nanaimo was around 3 o'clock, which I've always been entertained by, coming from the mainland. But,
Picking up their kids from school.
sorry?
They're picking up their kids from school.
Oh, that's fair. But 3 o'clock rush hour is really bizarre. But I think initially I had thought you were suggesting much earlier in the day, and which for me personally would be a conflict. I couldn't leave work at 1 or earlier, but I wouldn't have a problem for the most part getting away. Any questions for you?
No.
Any comments about what works for you?
I'm flexible either way. I think towards the end of the day, 4 o'clock is good, so I'm okay.
Okay, I think it's
5:30 works better for you though, doesn't it?
You know, I was a bit worried about it being a 1 o'clock start, in which case I would have a challenge, but I could work with 4.
I have the same impression in the email going. I thought it maybe conversation about 1 or 2, I couldn't do that, but 4 is okay.
Well, if anyone else has any other comments, or if someone, just to formalize it so we can have staff move forward, if there's going to be a change, we'll just have a motion and go from there.
I'll move the start time be changed to 4 p.m.
Quick question, with this, do we need to specify when this would be effective, or is there a minimum time?
I think that it would be great if you could specify starting which date.
Okay.
That would be great, and we'll need to change the bookings for the boardroom, so, yeah. It might, the boardroom is booking up very quickly right now because we're having all of our meetings over Zoom, and this is the biggest room that we have in the city. So yeah, the sooner, if you're starting it sooner, we may run into conflicts with trying to get the boardroom at 4 o'clock because there may be other meetings booked. But yeah, if you could at least specify what time you want to start it or what date you want to start it, that would be helpful.
Sorry, Ken, I just thought that would be important
Yeah.
to know if we were going to. I didn't mean to cut you off, I just thought we should be complete.
I'll second the motion.
Whenever it starts.
No, it's a motion, every motion has to have a second, or so I'm second.
Laney is suggesting that we also include the date when that would be effective.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
So I'm prepared to suggest the next meeting.
Okay. And right now, the next meeting, we are in November. Last year, our meeting fell on Christmas.
Yeah, no, this year it's not on Christmas.
Okay, sorry, I haven't looked ahead, so let's take a look.
The 17th? All right, 1, 2, 3. December 17th would be the next meeting.
Sure.
You want to do that or coincide it with the new schedule?
I'm happy to start on the 17th.
Okay.
So, okay.
Is there a conflict for anyone by making a decision to start it that early? Or would someone like to suggest otherwise?
I'm so sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to make this interjection, but my only concern with having it that early is that we mean the boardroom may already be booked up. So I realize that it might also be booked up on the 7th. Well, yeah, the 7th would be the next Board of Variance date, but you know, it's only 4 weeks away to that one. But
Subject to availability then?
yes.
Does that work?
Does that work?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Yes, but then I guess we would have to make another motion if it's not. Yeah, okay, I think if you say subject to availability, if not, then if the boardroom is not available, then we will start on the 7th. Is
Yes.
that part of the motion? I think that would be acceptable.
So that we don't have to do this again?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
How would you handle conflicts by leaving at 5:30?
No, we have it booked for the entire year at 5:30, so there wouldn't be. So we pre-book it a year in advance.
So if we say subject to availability, then does that mean that if it's not available, we'd meet at 5:30, but the next meeting after that, it would start at 4?
At 4, that's what I'm suggesting the motion be. And I guess, but then if it's not available on the 7th, then it would be the one after that.
Yeah.
Whatever the next available.
I think just, I would just leave it as stated, but add the word subject to room availability or something like that.
Okay.
So, I don't,
And Nelson, you second?
yeah, but I didn't follow the last part, so.
Sorry, maybe for clarity, if Ken, you wouldn't mind just what we talked about, making a final motion with all of that wording?
I move that our meeting times be changed to start at 4 p.m., effective December the 17th, subject to room availability.
Okay. The only issue, I guess, is that the Board of Variance at 5:30 is here, people come, and if we're subject to availability will mean juggling it around to accommodate some other group who wants to use the room or whatever. And that creates problems too, doesn't it?
I think,
It's only the first time though, after that, you're saying this is only for the first time, after that, if it's the 7th, that is a problem.
If it's
probably, I don't think that
Yeah,
anything's
just
going to be
go back
booked
to
that far in
5:30.
advance, up to the 7th.
And then we'll start in January.
Okay.
But tomorrow, Laney's going to make sure that this room is booked on the 17th at 4.
Okay.
Okay. Motion second. All in favor?
Whoever she has to beat up.
Yeah, just a show.
All right.
We all agree with that.
All right, anything else to chat about tonight, or should we wrap this up? All right, can we have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
All right, you've got 10.